All right, let's talk about something. A habit that, let's be honest, a ton of us in the database world have. It's that go-to move when things get slow. The one that feels super productive, but could actually be a ticking time bomb sitting in your production environment.
So I want you to think about this for a second. Your system is on fire, you reach for your favorite diagnostic tool to figure out why, but what if that very tool is the one pouring gasoline on the flames? It's a pretty terrifying thought, isn't it? But it's a very, very real possibility. You know the scene? The phone is ringing, Slack is blowing up, the production server is crawling, and that muscle memory just kicks in. You pop open the graphical SQL Profiler. It's familiar, it's visual, it gives you that live feed of data. But I'm telling you, on a live production server, that is one of the most dangerous things you can do. Let's dig into why.
So here's the game plan. First, we're going to call out this dangerous habit. Then we'll expose the fatal flaw in that GUI profiler. After that, I'll introduce you to the quiet, professional alternative. We'll put them head-to-head with some hard data, I'll show you exactly how to trace safely, and we'll wrap it all up with a golden rule you'll never want to forget.
Okay, let's talk about this habit. Firing up the SQL Profiler GUI directly on a production box to see what's going on, it's just so common. But here's the deal, that tool is a resource hog. It can chew up so much of the server's power that it can, and this is the crazy part, it can actually cause the very system outage you're trying to fix.
So what is the problem here? What's the fundamental flaw that makes this graphical tool so risky? Well, it all comes down to how it gets that information from the server and onto your screen. You can think of it like a live news report, and that's exactly where things get really, really hairy.
This whole problem has a name. It's called observer overhead. And this is the key concept right here. It's that moment when the very act of watching the system becomes so demanding that it hurts the system's ability to do its actual job. Your diagnostic tool is literally fighting for resources against the database itself. Now, here is my absolute favorite way to think about this. Imagine your database is a super busy chef in a chaotic kitchen during the dinner rush. Using the GUI profiler is like standing next to that chef and forcing them to stop after every single action just to tell you what they did. Okay, I'm chopping an onion now. Okay, I've just added a pinch of salt. The actual cooking, the important work, just grinds to a halt. And this is what's happening under the hood. It's this clunky, multi-step process for every single event. The engine makes it, it gets packaged up for the network, sent across the wire, your machine has to catch it, and then finally draw it on your screen. So what happens if any part of that chain gets slow? What happens if your laptop decides to start a virus scan?
Well, the fallout is severe. You get a ton of network traffic for one, but the real killer, the absolute worst part, is something called synchronous blocking. It means that if your client PC, your laptop, gets busy or the network lags, the database server literally has to wait for you before it can do more work. It's waiting on your slow connection. This leads to downtime, and you might even lose the very events you were trying to see in the first place.
Okay, so if firing up the GUI is a terrible idea, what do the pros do? What's the right way? Well, it's something called a server-side trace. This is the quiet, the safe, the incredibly efficient way to get this data without putting your whole production environment on the line.
Let's go back to our kitchen. A server-side trace is like putting a tiny, silent CCTV camera in the corner. The chef, your database, doesn't even know it's there. It just keeps on cooking at full speed, totally uninterrupted. And if you need to see what happened, you just go back and review the footage later. No interruptions, no slowdowns.
So how much network traffic does this quiet method generate? You ready for this? Zero. Zilch. Absolutely none. Because the entire process happens right there locally on the server. That one fact changes the entire game.
And the process is just so much smarter. Instead of yelling every event across the room one at a time, the database engine quietly collects them in a small internal memory buffer. And only when that little buffer gets full does it write the whole batch to a local file on the disk. It's asynchronous, it's efficient, and it is incredibly lightweight.
All right, enough talk and analogies. Let's put these two methods head to head and look at the real data. Because theory is one thing, but the numbers? Oh man, the numbers tell the whole story.
Just look at this. I mean, it's insane. Running that GUI profiler can spike your server's CPU load by over 20, sometimes more than 30%. And the server-side trace, you can barely even see it on the chart. It's typically less than 5%.
That's not a small difference. That is a night and day, completely different universe of impact. And you see this across the board. The GUI is synchronous, row by row. The trace is asynchronous and buffered. The GUI has severe network impact. The trace has none. The bottom line says it all, doesn't it? One is basically prohibited in production for a very good reason, and the other is the recommended professional standard.
Okay, I'm hoping you're convinced. But now you're probably asking, how do I actually do this? So let's get practical. Let's walk through the exact steps to run a safe and effective server-side trace. Now here's the best part. You don't even have to write the code from scratch. You can still use the friendly Profiler GUI to pick all the events and columns you want to capture. But instead of hitting run, you just export it as a script. Then you tweak two little things: the file path where you want to save the trace file on the server and the max file size. You run it, check that it's active, and this is critical. When you're done gathering data, you have to stop and remove the trace.
And I'm going to say this again, because it is that important. A server-side trace solves a performance problem, but it introduces one new gotcha. If you leave it running, it will just keep writing to that file forever. You could easily fill up the server's disk and create a whole new kind of emergency. So always clean up after yourself. Stop the trace, then remove it. You know, we've gone really deep on one specific set of tools here, but the lesson we've learned is so much bigger. It applies to any kind of monitoring, any kind of diagnostics you will ever do in a production environment.
This right here, this is the golden rule. If you remember one single thing, make it this. Whatever you are doing to monitor, to measure, or to diagnose a system, your actions must not change the behavior or the performance of that system. Your job is to be a ghost, a silent observer, not a participant that messes up the very thing you're trying to fix.
So we've seen the danger, and we've seen the safe, professional alternative. The question I want to leave you with is this. Knowing what you know now about observer overhead, what's one monitoring habit, whether it's with databases or anything else, that you are going to change starting tomorrow? Thanks for tuning in.